that question. A veteran Democratic New York Congressman Engel, representing parts of the Bronx and Westchester County. Welcome to Up Close, Congressman.
Thanks, Bill.
Welcome.
Good to be here.
Welcome back, I should say, of course. So what do you think? It did sound like a different Donald Trump, but then the next night, Thursday night, he sounded different again, and then on Friday, the White House said, no, it's the same guy. He was just, placating the NRA.
Well, you never know which Donald Trump you're going to get. The good Donald Trump, the evil Donald Trump, a little bit of both. You really just don't know. He's been all over the place. He's been back and forth. It's the same way with diplomacy. I call it fly by the seat of your pants diplomacy. Same thing with gun control. Whatever he thinks at any given time, he lets come out, and then the next day, when he rethinks it, or when his aides tell him he can't do that, he changes his mind, then he goes back again. So I really don't know. Look, all we need to do, it shouldn't be a Democratic or Republican problem. It's an American problem, and it's common sense. Common sense gun control. If you're not allowed to fly, you shouldn't be allowed to buy. I have no idea why people are allowed assault weapons when they're weapons of war. I think it would make sense to have a ban on assault weapons, on the purchase of it, like we did once before in 1994 for 10 years. Certainly the age should go up to 21, background checks. These are just things that make sense. No one wants to take guns away from people or trample on Second Amendment rights, but it's pure common sense.
And that seems to be the difference in strategy among, especially you Democrats, this time around, which is why some people say that this gun massacre, as compared to the other gun massacres we've had, all the other ones, this one might be different partly because the American people, I think, are ready for this. According to all the polls. And the Democrats are not making the Second Amendment the issue here. They're making assault weapons the issue, and slight tweaks to age of who can buy weapons. So it's not an attack on the Second Amendment, not even a debate over the Second Amendment. Is that the strategy?
Well, I don't know if this strategy, the strategy is to get some common sense legislation. I don't know that it's any different. After Sandy Hook, when they killed all those beautiful young children, 6 years old and 5 years old and 7 years old, I thought for sure now there'd be a change, and suddenly that went by the wayside. The terrible shootings in Las Vegas. You just go on and on and on. We can't even get a bill on the floor to debate, which is why many of us participated in that sit-in a year ago. It was illegal. They said, if we ever do it again, we're going to be arrested. I don't want to be arrested, but I'm willing to be arrested if it moves the gun control issue in this country.
Are you worried that we're losing our opportunity, that some of the momentum already seems to be dissipating, and the president's sort of flip-flopping on this is contributing to that?
I'm worried, frankly, that I hate to get political, but it's the only way you can get. And as long as we have a Republican majority in Congress, the NRA has too much of a say, and they are afraid to do anything. Again, I believe in Second Amendment rights. If you need a gun for security or whatever reason, for hunting or whatever, no one's opposed to it. But weapons of war that the Founding Fathers could never have imagined we'd ever have, where you can shoot 100 people in a matter of minutes or seconds, that should not be allowed to stand.
Right, you'd be in favor of everyone having a single-shot musket, I assume, right?
I wouldn't oppose it.
Yeah, right, of course, and that's what the Founding Fathers did have at their disposal at that time. They did not envision these assault weapons. Right. Let's move on to another topic. Let's talk about these tariffs that the president, without apparently consulting all of his economic advisors about timing or the specifics, came out to 10% on aluminum, 25% on steel. Not really sure when it'll start being effective, but soon, he said. What is it going to mean for the economy? And, what you saw what happened, the reaction from foreign countries.
Yeah, well, and also the stock market plummeted. This is going to be bad in terms of hurting the average consumer with a rise in prices. And this is another example of Donald Trump just shooting from the hip. Flying by the seat of his pants, coming out with this. I would bet that he hardly discussed it with his advisors at all, that they were blindsided. Every time he tweets or every time he calls a press conference, I can just imagine his aides kind of scurrying around behind him saying, oh no, now we've got to get out of this mess again. This is just ridiculous. It's no way to govern. It is just the most absurd thing I've seen in all the years that I've been on Capitol Hill.
Let's go into his aides question and his advisors, because this has been a week where despite a lot of other news, focus on the White House, and the internal workings and machinations of the White House are coming to the fore. Before I get into what some people are calling the chaos in the White House saying it's not chaos, let's look at some of these investigations now into Jared Kushner especially, who seems to have lost a lot of a cachet in the White House, but specifically the investigations into his business dealings and meetings he may have had with financial people, and suddenly after they meet in the White House, his businesses get a loan. What do you make of all this, and what's going to happen to Mr. Kushner?
It's always, and it's not only Jared Kushner. It's everybody who, or almost everybody, who seems to be at the top level. You know, we've been fighting to sanction Russia for all the terrible things they've done, interfering with our election in 2016, apparently going to do it again or attempt to do it in 2018, all these kinds of things. And yet this president, despite legislation that's been passed by the Congress, by both Democrats and Republicans, refuses to sanction Russia, to use what he has, the authority we gave him, to sanction Putin and sanction Russia. Everything is secretive. You know, Jared Kushner went to that meeting with the Russians and
Trump Tower in June of
Jr.
2016.
We don't know. I mean, so I just think we have to rely on Mr. Mueller, who I believe is an honest and dedicated man who wants nothing more than to find out the truth. We have to rely on him and see what happens. But there's this inability to sort of crack what's really happening at the White House. I mean, we're told there's confusion. We're told it's just absolutely crazy. You've got resignations of people that were his closest advisors who now can't take it anymore and resign. And I've never seen a White House in such chaos.
There's the chaos in terms of the management style, and then there's the real questions of ethics. And there are reasons why there are rules against doing personal business on government time and mixing the two, coagulating the two.
Well, you're mixing the two, and also, you know, that's why when anybody has been president before Donald Trump, they've divested themselves of their businesses, or they've put stuff in blind trusts, or they've done all kinds of things, so nobody can confuse anybody with making laws or carrying out laws that would financially benefit them. With Donald Trump, everything's out the window. I mean, everything's out the window. I suspect that we haven't, you know, seen his taxes or any documents, because I think there's a lot of business interests with the Russians, and I think that's one of his reasons why he doesn't want to go after Putin.
We only have about 30 seconds left. It's sort of a yes or no question, and then maybe a brief explainer. Jeff Sessions, Attorney General, terrible week in terms of his relationship with Donald Trump. Trump, the president, blasting him on social media and tweeting all the time about him, calling it disgraceful what he's doing. Does he survive this?
I don't see how he survives it. You know, I've never cared much for him.
Talking about Sessions, not the president.
Oh, Sessions.
Yeah,
Sessions.
Yeah.
I think Sessions finally has a backbone, and good for him. I don't see how he survives it, though, because when you're a cabinet member, you serve at the pleasure of the president, and it's obvious that Sessions is not pleasurable by any standard, as according to Donald Trump. So I just think it's another instance of the president trying to bully and being erratic and just not making sense. We haven't seen this probably since the Nixon years, and maybe there's some things that are even worse than the Nixon years.
Okay, New York Congressman Elliot Engel, thanks for coming by again.
My pleasure.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.